And joining us live now is US political analyst Aidan Smith. Aidan, good to see you as always. Thanks so much. It now seems inevitable, doesn't it, that Kamala Harris will be the nominee. Doesn't sound like there's anyone in the wings to add another twist to what has just been an extraordinary week in US politics.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that it's such a massive whirlwind, even by the standards of a pretty chaotic political environment. I think that mainly what we saw in terms of potential players who might have opposed her the nomination, Joe Manchin, who's formerly an independent but was still considering running for the nomination. Someone like California Governor Gavin Newsom, they're clearly not going to run. So at this point, I think Harris actually has a formal majority of delegates to the point where she's being considered the presumptive nominee in most media reports.
And what about her candidate for VP? Who are the front runners there now?
Yeah, so really seeing names looking at swing state Democratic governors, people like Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, someone like Tim Walz in Minnesota, kind of a demographic balance, mostly centered on male candidates. So a little chat on Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. Besides them, the only major senator we're seeing name being floated is Mark Kelly, obviously from a swing state in Arizona, astronaut background, another good contrast. Lastly, you've seen Andy Beshear in Kentucky, obviously a solid red state. His name's being floated around a lot. A lot of people on the Democratic camp think that he might be a good rival for J.D. Vance, since they're both, Appalachia region. Beshear's pretty telegenic and kind of has the look, especially for a red state Democrat in a red state. So I think those are the big names. My hunch is that Shapiro is probably the front runner for it as it stands.
Okay, on the other side, what are the early signs as to how Trump is changing his strategy to react to what's going on the Democrat side? What are the sort of weaknesses of Kamala Harris, do you think, that Trump will now be trying to exploit?
For sure. So I think that as it stands now, obviously in terms of public perception public portrayal, Republican camp is really leaning on strengths because obviously as it stands, Trump is still in polling clearly favored. So they have a lot of reason to be optimistic. The main argument is like in the clip, the argument that if Biden really can't handle running for president, that he should resign. Mainly the argument being that Harris is almost an accomplice of sorts for Biden remaining in office, when their argument is that he shouldn't be if he can't even run for president. It'll be interesting to see that in November, because with Harris definitely as a candidate wants to run while touting what the Biden administration sees as the accomplishments of the administration, while also presenting herself as a change candidate and distancing herself from the more unpopular stuff. So I think that's really the big test is for Trump camp, for the Republicans, is really trying to tie Harris to the Biden-Harris administration, which is obviously a really natural thing. And whether they're successfully able to do that is probably the make or break of the election, I think.
Aidan Smith, always appreciate you joining with your insights. Thanks so much.
Yeah.